Hey, you guys. Today I'm going to be talking about a foundational verse in the Bible for training up a child. And that is obviously train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. That's in Proverbs 22, verse 6. We hear this a lot. At least I've heard it a lot, raising children and in church and in just different areas of life. I've heard it a lot, but when I first started seeing this verse, I was like, okay, but what's the training up? What is that? How do you train up? What does that entail, the training up? And I think it's good to define it and see what that looks like. One of the things I liked is I looked up the word train in other versions of the Bible, and some of them said direct, some of them said start them off in the way they should go, teach them in the way they should go. But one of the ways that I like to think of it now, knowing how that looks, is when we send our military men and women out to battle, before we do, we train them. They get trained in how to, every scenario that can happen when they're out on the battlefield, and they have different levels of training, and they go through intense training because they don't want to send them out there and then they fail because they weren't prepared. Well, this is the same thing. This is what this verse is saying. Train a child, because out there in the world, when they get older, that's a battlefield for them. There's a lot going on in this world, guys. None of us are oblivious to it. We can look at the news, we can turn it on, and within 5 minutes, we can see all the things that our kids are up against. And this is, this is just now. My oldest is only 10. What does that look like in 10 years? And so, we're preparing them for that battlefield. This training isn't to train little robots that will do what we want. This training is so that we can prepare them for the battlefield, so we can prepare them for all the scenarios. And yes, that of course, once they go on the battlefield, it'll be their choice. It'll take their discernment. It'll take all these things to put all these things together that we've trained them. But if we've trained them, then we're going to be able to sit back and feel like, okay, it's know that the victory is ours, that these children are going to go out there, because that's what the Bible says. If we train them when they are old, they won't depart from it. It will be a lot easier for them. They'll have, the knowledge and all the things they need to go out there and deal with the things that are put in their face. If we do this, we're trailblazing a lot of things that maybe as kids we weren't taught, or we weren't done, that we didn't have to do, or we didn't learn to do. And that might be hard for us right now. Like, I know for me personally, not just because I wasn't taught, but when you're a first-time parent, you're clueless, completely clueless. When I first had my daughter Sophia, who's now 10 years ago, I was getting all these things from all these sources about how to parent the right way, and it was so overwhelming not to do this, to do that, to say this, to not say that, how that looked. And now on my fourth kid, it was a breeze. But that first child I felt overwhelmed all the time. I felt like, what am I doing? Am I doing it wrong? Am I doing it right? Like, I had no idea. So when this verse came up, and when I started learning about this, it was like, I still don't know. There's no, I needed to know what that training looked like. And thinking about it like that, I can understand what that training looks like. It's the exact training that I have gone through. It's just, now I'm teaching it onto them. So for a lot of us, some of these things are going to be new to us because maybe we haven't been trained in them. And guess what? It's great. It'll be a learning ground for you and a teaching ground for them. And so, it's an encouraging thing that this time, it is a hard time. It's not easy. It's not easy because it does involve discipline. It does involve you being disciplined as much as them being disciplined. You disciplining them and you being disciplined in that disciplining. It involves being able to handle the situations that arise with discernment and love and the exact knowing of what the wisdom that we need in that moment. I liked that. I looked up the word train, and one of the versions of the Bible in Colossians 3:16 said, "Let the word of Christ have its home in your heart, and dwell in you in all richness as you teach and admonish and train one another in all insight and intelligence and wisdom. Train one another. So that includes our children. Train one another in all insight, intelligence, and wisdom. As much as we, like for me, I go, disciple one-on-one. That's training one another in all insight and intelligence and wisdom. We need to be doing this with our kids. It's the first place we need to be doing this. I also loved what 1 Timothy 4:7 said, and actually I liked it how it said it in the New International Version. It says, it's in verse 7, have nothing to do with godless myths and old wives' tales, which I thought was particularly funny because we hear all these, what I would call old wives' tales and myths now. This is how we have to think of them, because that's what it is. If we truly believe that God is capable of raising up great children according to what his word says, then these are old wives' tales and myths that our children, as they get older, will depart from us and will not want us. And, I've heard that so much with my daughter turning 10 and then getting closer to her teens, and just be prepared. They're not going to be, and I don't accept that for my child. I don't for any of my children. Those are to me old wives' tales. And he says in this, have nothing to do with that. Have nothing to do with that. Rather, instead, train yourself to be godly. So instead, I'm not going to listen to that. Instead, I'm going to train them to be godly. I much rather prefer that, to train them to be godly and to live a godly life, and so that when they grow old, they're gonna be happy and joyful and have good experiences, and it's gonna be great. And like I said, yes, that involves discipline. That does involve discipline, and that's not the only thing I'll be talking about. I'll be talking about things from discipline to their attire to things that we deal with on a daily basis, financially with them. Maybe for some reason my mind's, when I think of the different things that I'll be talking about, I'll bring it up. But but discipline is a major one, especially the young ones, starting them little and understanding. And I will also show you why. Don't turn off the video. Just wait, because I'll show you why. Not just what you always hear and what you guys probably, like some of you that don't agree with discipline in the way that you see it, like, just give me a chance. Hear me out. I will say this about discipline. That Hebrews 12:11 says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained in it. Funny, the word trained again. So we have to be trained in discipline. This is for adults and children alike. We have to be trained in discipline, and we have to train our children, and we're going to have a harvest of righteousness and peace. A lot of people are just moms. I know for me, as a mom, as a young mom, having 2 children at first, now I have 4, but at that time, feeling so overwhelmed with everything that would happen, and at the end of the day, wanting to cry and wanting to feel like I was losing a battle between these kids and myself, and then thinking, what is this going to look like when this is a, at the time, a 3 and a 1.5-year-old, for example. But what is this going to look like when they're 18 and 16 and a half? Like, what is that going to look like? And feeling overwhelmed even with just that thought. And I know there's a lot of times that we lay down as moms and dads and, or whoever's in charge of these kids and feel overwhelmed like we have no solutions. But there are solutions, you guys. And it's not pleasant at the time, but painful. But then guess what? Later on, if you're diligent about it, you produce a harvest of righteousness and peace. So, for me, for example, an example of this is that when my daughter was 3 years old, I have a video that I was recently watching where she was all mad at me for who knows what. I was videoing her, and she got mad during the video, and she ran off to the other side of the room. And she was like, no, and yelling at me, a 3-year-old. And at the time, I had no idea. I'm raising 2 kids. I'm 23, 24, around there. I'm completely clueless to what to do. And I'm laughing. I laugh and I'm just like, Sophia, come on, calm down. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, and she's still yelling at me, still not listening to me. The video goes off. Now knowing all the things I know, I was horrified. And I'm so thankful that I had people in my life that spoke these things to me and showed me these things and showed me truth about these things, because my 10-year-old is amazing. Amazing, you guys. Amazing. Just recently, this past week, you know, a few weeks before or a few days before, I don't remember, like time before, we had a moment where she was rude. She answered rudely, and I just told her, like, that's not okay. She ended up with a consequence of not, you know, having friends over that day. And I was like, that's not okay. You don't just talk to me like that. Like, that's not how we talk to people. It's not just about me. It's what does it look like for the future? That's not how you're going to talk to somebody. That's not good. And so she understood that well. Last week, we happened to be talking about something. She said she answered, and then, you know, I just told her, I didn't even realize she answered in any which way. I was just like, okay, you know, we ended the conversation. She went away. A while later, she came back into the room and she's like, Mommy, I just want to apologize. I shouldn't have talked to you like that. I had no idea, you guys, that she even said it in a rude way, but she knew, her conscience knew how she had said it. And the conviction made her realize that she was wrong and to change it. And I was like, oh, well, thank you. You know, I didn't even realize, but thank you for acknowledging that. And not only that, but I know that it wasn't just like, oh, I feel bad and I'm just going to apologize. It was, I'm going to change this attitude. And I've been seeing a change in her attitude because of these things, you guys. But I started right after these videos, I started with biblical discipline, and she's been trained in that. And it's just the most peaceful, amazing thing to be around her and see the amazing little woman she's growing into. She's not a woman yet, but like the amazing young little girl she's growing into, and it's just amazing. So it is possible. And I'm not just seeing that with her, but also my 9-year-old. And right now currently working on training my 5-year-old and my 4-year-old now in the same way, so that we can see the same results when they're 9 and 10 and feel confident that I don't have to worry about what, you know, first of all, because I'm here with them all day long. I homeschool them, so having to be here at home all day long, I can you imagine your peace all day long being constantly gone? I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to homeschool them. A lot of people ask me, how do you homeschool them? Well, because I've trained them up in the way they should go. And so there's peace in our house. There's peace. And of course, you know, especially the little ones, they still have, you know, they're still working this out, and we're working it out with them, but we're doing it and we're being diligent as parents to do it. Well, and even the older ones, yes, this is still training ground. They're still in training ground, but we're already seeing the results of them even at just 9 and 10 years old. So be encouraged that there is good results even within a little bit of time if you just are diligent to train up this child now. You know, I was thinking, I always like to put in the perspective, because, you know, for a lot of people, it's like, well, why are you just, you know, it goes back to the whole creating little robots. No, I'm not trying to create a little robot. Just think about this. That 3-year-old ran off to the other side of the room and didn't want to have anything to do with me, wouldn't listen to me. But imagine now instead a 16-year-old who gets mad. And I used to see this with my friends in middle school. I remember a girl in my middle school who would get mad at her mom, and when it was night, she would get out through her window and go sleep around middle school, you guys. And this was a while ago. And she would go and do drugs. She would go drinking. That's scary, you guys. And go see how this girl turned out. It's really sad. No one ever put a stop to that. And no one helped her to see that these things were going to be destructive. And so then, you know, I go to the prisons. I see these women, a lot of these women all the time, that they're like, you know, I just went to a group home in Honduras where this little girl who's never had a family, who's been in group homes since she was 9 months old, was like, pray for me that I would be adopted and that they would love me and discipline me. This child knew that she needed discipline. Kids know, they're not naive, or they do care for it. I remember, I remember even friends that would come over and be like, oh, it's nice that your mom tells you what to do. And I'd be like, no, it's not. But when it's not happening to you and you realize that's love, that little girl in that group home, gosh, my eyes teared up when she said that. And it was so hard to sit there and be like, not want to take her home with me, on the plane the next day. Of course I couldn't, but she equated love to discipline and discipline to love. God corrects us, you guys, because he loves us. And it should be the same with us as parents, that we should be correcting these children because we love them and we want to see the best for them. And to continue on, just little examples. There's so many examples of what happens when we don't take care of these things, especially in the discipline area, now to what happens later on. For example, with teenagers. Last year, I saw on the news a boy who murdered his mom because she got mad that he had bad grades. And she brought up the issue with him. He didn't like it. He murdered her. You guys, this kid was not like a kid off the streets that, the mom was a drug addict. No, the neighbors were like, this was completely a surprise to us. People on Facebook were like, this was completely a surprise to us. This was not common in this family. It wasn't like these people were crazy. This was a normal family who this boy just decided that, probably just hadn't been disciplined, never had been told no, only a few times maybe, but this is the result. And that might seem extreme, you guys, but it's happening every day. The whole story with the gorilla, the kid falling into the gorilla thing. I don't remember the exact story, but I do remember watching a video and thinking, and this is not to shame the mom, you guys. This is just to show you that, I actually felt bad because I was like, man, this could have been avoided if he, I remember in the video, I think he's telling her, like, he wants to go in there or he wanted to do something. I don't remember. The mom was like, no. Then, and then he's in there. First time obedience is a thing I'll be talking about. What happens when you tell a child no and they never listen and you never do anything about it? Things like this can happen, and we're seeing it more and more. I always tell my children, I always tell them when I'm disciplining them why. I give them the reason why, because I want them to know that this isn't just about creating them to be little robots and listening to me. This is about care and love and what I am the best thing for them. And even my 4-year-old understands that. Recently I had a situation where I had to discipline him, and he came and he said, we talked about it afterwards, and I told him, Jack, you're not listening to me the first time I say it, and it's not that big of a deal in our house because this is a safe area to a certain extent, and what he was doing was not that big of a deal. Like, to other people, it might not seem that big of a deal. But what happens when you go out on the street? And this happened with my now 5-year-old, where her and her friend were walking ahead of me at the beach and the other adults, and it was getting close to the street, and a guy went speeding through the street, which he shouldn't have been in the first place. It was like a 25-mile-per-hour zone. Went speeding right in front of them, and we just said, stop, and they stopped. But I even said that. We talked about it with my 4-year-old, and I said, what happens if kids don't listen when their parents say stop in that situation? And he's like, and that seems funny, you guys, that he would say that. To me, I was like, wow, he understands. And I, giggled a little bit, but the truth is, it's not funny. It's not funny. We don't want this for our kids. We want the best for them. We want to take care of them. Well, these are the things that we can avoid, and we won't always have to be worried. I don't worry that if I allow, my child to do certain things, that I have to worry about what the results are going to be if they're not. Because I know, especially my 10-year-old, all of them argue, the younger ones, because she gets to do a lot of stuff. She's proven. She's proven herself. She's proven that she can be trusted. She's proven that not only that, but this isn't just something for her, the same thing. This isn't just something that it's well, my parents are, they just, no, she now, she'll hear us talking to another kid, and she's like, yeah, they really need that. And it's just funny, you guys, because it's yeah, they really need that. It's the best thing for them, Mom. And she tries to encourage me, you guys, you're doing the right thing. And even with her own self, when I would discipline her when she was younger or deal with things when she was younger, yes, and I know you guys are still on there, so my screen went black. But just being aware that we have something that these children need. We have to just put our foot down and start saying, okay, we're gonna make it. It's gonna take a lot of work. But this is the deciding thing right now. Is deciding, am I willing to put in all the work that it's gonna require of me? Because it's hard. It takes a lot of effort. It does sometimes drain us at the end of the day, but it's a good drain. A drain that says, I'm accomplishing what I set out to do. I'm seeing results. And you know what? We'll have a harvest of righteousness and peace if we really just put ourselves to love and care on these kids by correcting them just like God did, by, showing them, because this isn't just about, I think that's a major problem with a lot of people with the whole disciplining thing. It's like, oh, you just want to beat them and this and that. No, God, that's awful. And believe me, I came from from being abused as a child physically by my dad as well as sexually, and being beat. That's definitely not the approach that I'm taking. But I do want to take an approach of doing the right thing with these kids and really teaching them what it means to be a good, to raise them to be what every parent wants their kid to be. Great, amazing human beings that can go out into the world and be prepared for everything they have to do. So tune in next week. I'll be talking about spiritual authority as well as physical authority over our children, and that'll include more discipline things, maybe some techniques in the discipline area that I've seen work with my own children, and just anything else I can. And always know that you can reach out to me through email if you have any questions or something you'd like me to talk about specifically. If not, I'll be addressing issues that are coming up within my own family or things that I see, along the way. And I can't wait to keep sharing. Bye, guys.